Caitlin Clark starts by talking about her mother, not basketball, not her stats, not her team. It's a rare shift that catches you off guard. She opens up about the role her mom plays in her life, describing her as an emotional anchor during times of injury, pressure, and silence. For someone often painted as intense and hypercompetitive, hearing Clark speak about the calm she finds in cooking and home rituals add a whole new dimension to her public persona. It's not just an athlete's reset. It's a reclaiming of identity. Her vulnerability here doesn't feel like a media play. It feels like a moment she needed for herself. What's striking is how this moment of softness transitions into a more complex portrait of someone navigating high expectations while trying to stay grounded. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. Clark's willingness to step back and reflect, especially during a period of tension with the Indiana fever, signals something bigger than a personal story. She's using this interview not just to talk about family or cooking, but to reset the tone around who she is and why she plays. It's a pivot toward deeper engagement, where her story becomes a message. For months, Caitlin Clark has been a name echoing through every arena, every broadcast, every headline. But for all the buzz around her stats, her endorsements, and her rise as the face of women's basketball, one thing has been missing. Her, the real Caitlin Clark, off the court, beyond the press conferences. Lilly Singh Master Collection. That all changed in her new interview with Glamour, hosted by Lilly Singh. And no, this wasn't your typical athlete on a press tour. This was raw, honest, vulnerable. Caitlin didn't just open the door. She tore the whole thing off the hinges. And what spilled out? A completely different side of the woman everyone thought they knew. She started by pulling back the curtain on the pressures that come with being the Caitlin Clark. The cameras, the expectations, the endless media swirl. It's not just noise, it's a weight. And in that whirlwind, she revealed something unexpected. When everything gets overwhelming, she turns to cooking. Home-cooked meals are her way of reclaiming peace, of creating a safe space in the chaos. That detail alone stopped people in their tracks. Because while most headlines have painted her as a cold-blooded competitor or just another endorsement machine, here she was, talking about food, family, and grounding herself when the world feels upside down. The real gut punch, though, her relationship with her mom. Caitlin spoke openly about how her mom has been her emotional anchor, especially through the brutal moments most fans never see. Injuries, burnout, self-doubt. Her mother's presence has been the quiet force, keeping her balance when a game tries to knock her down. It's the kind of emotional honesty you don't often hear from athletes at the top of their game. And it landed, but she didn't stop there. Lisa Bludder Master Collection. She also opened up about her college days under Coach Lisa Bludder, the way she talked about team culture. It wasn't just nostalgia. It was a blueprint. Because according to Caitlin, everything she learned from Coach Bludder helped her understand something bigger, that her platform isn't just about racking up points or stacking trophies. It's about how she shows up, who she lifts up, what legacy she leaves behind. Folder not found. Create new folder. Eli Lilly Master Collection, and that's where the interview started to veer from personal into something deeper. Strategic, even, because let's talk about the endorsements. Specifically, her partnership with Eli Lilly. On paper, it's another brand deal. But Clark made it clear, this wasn't just about money. It was about alignment. She picked a brand that supports women's sports, that puts real investment into the future of female athletes. In an industry where endorsements often feel like soulless cash grabs, Caitlin's decision stood out as intentional, value-driven. She's playing the long game. Then came the part that really raised eyebrows. When the conversation turned to the Indiana Fever, the team she's been trying to carry this season, Caitlin didn't name names. She didn't throw anyone under the bus. But make no mistake, she said plenty. She expressed clear frustration with how the organization has handled her workload, the team dynamics, and overall support. The subtext wasn't subtle. She feels mismanaged. She feels unheard. And she's not hiding it anymore. It was a kind of controlled criticism that makes PR departments sweat. But for fans, it was everything. Because up until now, Caitlin's been all focus, no friction. This was the first time she let people in on how the machine around her might be part of the problem, not just her own performance. It was a calculated but unmistakable shift in tone, and it's not lost on her how big the platform really is. She talked about women's sports in a way that made it clear she sees herself not just as a player, but as part of something much bigger. She brought up the impact of legends like Maya Moore Master Collection, Maya Moore, and Mia Hamm Master Collection, Mia Hamm, athletes who weren't just champions but changemakers. Caitlin sees her influence, and she's fully aware of the shoes she's stepping into. These weren't just name drops. They were acknowledgments of a blueprint. Moore, known for leaving the game to pursue criminal justice reform. Hamm, a trailblazer who helped transform women's soccer into a national movement. Clark admires them not just for what they did in their primes, but for how they used their influence after. That's the trajectory she's eyeing. Long-term impact. Meaningful legacy. And she knows she can't build that legacy if she loses touch with her base. Which is why, as she explained, this interview wasn't just an emotional purge. It was also a reset, a way to reconnect with fans who, frankly, had started to feel shut out. Between the corporate deals, the media silence, and a lack of personal content, some supporters felt like the Caitlin they cheered for in college had disappeared into brand deals and post-game sound bites. She admitted as much, and made it clear that's not who she wants to be. She wants to get back to the joy of the game. The kid from Iowa who fell in love with basketball before it was business. She wants to stop playing for headlines and start playing for love again. That honesty, it hit. Especially when you remember that all of this is coming just as she's prepping for a major shoe release and what could be a make-or-break season. It's not just a personal revelation. It's a business move, and a smart one. Because in the age of curated perfection and overexposure, what fans want more than anything is authenticity. They want to know who their heroes are when the cameras aren't rolling. Caitlin finally gave them that, and not by accident. She spoke about the power of storytelling, how the athletes she admired growing up were more than stats. They were stories, and she wants her own narrative to reflect the full picture. The athlete, the daughter, the thinker, the leader. Her reflections didn't shy away from pain, either. She acknowledged the toll the pressure has taken, the moments when she felt disconnected, when the fire dimmed. That desire to return to joy wasn't just poetic, it was urgent, because burnout is real, even for superstars, especially for superstars. And she's choosing to talk about it instead of pretending to be unbreakable. That alone sets her apart. She's not just chasing numbers or trophies anymore. She's chasing alignment with herself, with her purpose, and with the people watching her every move. This interview, more than anything, was her stepping into that next chapter, the one where vulnerability is strength, where personal truth drives public persona, and where brand deals, press tours, and media appearances actually reflect the person she is, not the image people expect. In her own words, it's about bridging the gap between who she is and how she's perceived. And for Caitlin, that bridge starts with authenticity, not perfection, not control, honesty. And that honesty is what's going to redefine her future, not just in basketball, but beyond it. She's signaling a shift, from athlete to icon, from player to role model, from face of the game to voice of it. She's done pretending everything's fine. She's done letting others define her story. And if this interview is any indication, Caitlin Clark's second act is going to be a lot louder, a lot deeper, and a lot more real than anyone. So, what did you think of the side of Caitlin? Did her comments on the Indiana Fever catch you off guard? And do you think this new, more open version of her will change how she's seen by the league and by fans? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you're here for athletes keeping it real. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest moments in pop culture chaos. Because here's the thing, this wasn't just a nice little heart-to-heart. Caitlin Clark chose this moment, and this format very deliberately. And it makes sense. After months of being talked about, analyzed, picked apart on highlight reels, and turned into a polarizing figure in sports debates, she finally grabbed the mic herself. No middleman. No coach translating her mindset. No PR filter polishing the soundbite. Just Caitlin sitting across from Lilly and letting people see her. And what they saw, someone at a crossroads, not a meltdown, not a scandal, but a real human moment that stopped the noise and cut to the core. She's not trying to be the perfect athlete. She's trying to be the full person, the competitor, the daughter, the exhausted professional, the woman who still lights up talking about my amour, the one who finds peace in cooking a good meal when the pressure becomes too much. It's easy to forget that Caitlin Clark is still navigating her first year in the WNBA. The weight on her shoulders has been absurd. She wasn't just drafted, she was anointed. The savior of women's basketball, the ticket seller, the culture shifter, and all of that before she ever played a single game as a pro. And now, in this interview, she's subtly calling out how that pressure has been mishandled. She didn't scream about it. She didn't rant. But her message was clear. The Indiana Fever haven't built the kind of support system she needs. And when an athlete like Caitlin, known for discipline and leadership, hints at management issues, it matters because she's not a diva. She's not known for drama. So when she says there's a problem, you believe her. Her comments about team dynamics weren't accidental. She knows the game within the game. She knows when a team environment isn't working. And she's saying out loud, not just for herself, but for every young athlete watching who's been told to stay quiet, to keep their head down, to play nice. This isn't a tantrum. It's a warning. If the Fever don't fix what's broken, they risk losing more than games. They risk losing her. Not in the literal sense. She's not leaving the league. But mentally, emotionally, if they don't start respecting her competitive drive, her love for the sport, and her need for a functional environment, she'll disengage. And you'll start to see the spark fade. And that's not just bad for the team. It's bad for the entire league. Because like it or not, Caitlin Clark is the moment. The growth of women's sports, the boost in viewership, the spike in merch sales. She's at the center of all of it, which is exactly why this pivot toward vulnerability matters. Because people don't just want to watch athletes anymore. They want to connect with them. They want to see the struggle behind the swagger. And Clark is finally giving them that. She's not alone in this, either. The interview emphasized her admiration for athletes like Mia Hamm and Maya Moore, not just for their records, but for their purpose. These are women who use their platforms to change things, who didn't just play the game, but elevated it. And Caitlin's aligning herself with that legacy. It's a clear signal. She doesn't just want to dominate on the court. She wants to mean something off it. Her comment about Maya Moore specifically felt like a compass. Moore walked away from the sport at the top of her game, not because she was burned out, but because she had a mission. Justice, reform, real impact. And Clark sees that path, not as a sacrifice, but as a blueprint. That's the kind of awareness that separates good athletes from icons. And yes, her partnership with Eli Lilly fits into the same thread. Because again, this wasn't some passive brand deal. She's not just holding a product and cashing a check. She made it clear she aligned with them because they believe in women's sports. They're putting money and resources into making sure female athletes don't have to live in the shadow of their male counterparts. That matters. That's legacy building. Let's not pretend Caitlin's not calculating here. She is, and she should be, because this is about building a sustainable career, not just riding the wave of hype until the next fresh face takes over. She's thinking long-term, about influence, about narrative, about control, and it's working. She knows her audience wants to feel like they're in on the journey, not just watching from the bleachers. And that's why the tone of this interview hit so differently. There was no fake humility, no robotic responses, just someone who's tired of pretending everything's fine and brave enough to say out loud, that shift, that intentional vulnerability, it's what's going to carry her forward when the stats cool down and the cameras move on. Because legacy isn't built on perfect records. It's built on connection. And speaking of connection, let's not skip over how deeply rooted Clark still is in Iowa. She talked about it. How those roots keep her grounded. How being home with her people is what keeps her going. In a year where she's been pulled into every direction, flown across the country, shoved into branding meetings, tossed into media cycles, She's trying to hold on to what made her fall in love with the sport in the first, and she's smart to do it. Because when you get caught up in the chaos of the industry, it's easy to forget what you're actually doing this for. That joy she mentioned, that joy has to come back. Otherwise, what's the point? And that's exactly what she's trying to rediscover. She's not asking for sympathy. She's asking for space. To breathe, to grow, to be a person, not just a performer. And whether she meant to or not, Caitlin Clark just gave every athlete, especially young women, permission to do the same. To admit when they're overwhelmed. To speak up when the system isn't working. To demand more than applause. To demand respect. So yes, this wasn't just an interview. It was a reset, a declaration. Caitlin Clark isn't here to be a perfect brand ambassador. She's not here to be anyone's golden girl. She's here to be herself. And if that means ruffling feathers or exposing cracks in the system, so be it. Because what she's building now, it's not just a basketball career. It's a legacy of honesty, grit, and leadership. She's evolving, not away from the game, but deeper into it, with her eyes wide open and her voice finally being heard. And here's what's wild, this moment, this pivot, this finally saying something real, it didn't come during a game. It didn't come at a press conference. It came during a sit-down with Glamour. Glamour, of all places. Not ESPN, not Bleacher Report, not Sports Illustrated. Glamour. And that says everything. Because Caitlin Clark isn't just trying to reach hoop heads. She's not just speaking to the sports crowd. She's aiming wider. She's telling her story where people actually listen, where they're not just analyzing her shot form or debating her efficiency rating. She's stepping into a space where identity matters, where vulnerability is currency. We're talking about your mom, your mental health, your childhood dreams, and your frustrations isn't seen as weakness. It's seen as truth. This was a calculated detour, and it worked. Because for the first time, people are talking about Caitlin Clark the person, not just a player. They're not just watching her box scores. They're seeing the woman behind them. The one who grew up idolizing athletes who stood for more than just points. The one who now knows what it feels like to be under that same magnifying glass. Only to realize no one really knows you unless you open up. And the truth is, for a while there, Caitlin felt distant. That was the elephant in the room. The silence. The overly curated social media. The brand deals that seemed more robotic than real. People noticed. Fans noticed. That cold, professional exterior started to crack a little, and not in a good way. There was a growing disconnect. This off-season especially, there was a shift, less presence, less interaction. And for an athlete who built her college legacy on passion and relatability, it felt like something had changed. But now we see why. This wasn't apathy, it was burnout. This wasn't distance. It was disillusionment. Caitlin had been swallowed whole by the machine of professional sports, and now she's crawling her way back to the surface with intention. She's reclaiming her image, her voice, her reason why. And that's what makes this interview so pivotal. Because this wasn't just a reintroduction. It was a subtle but powerful message to every sponsor, every teammate, every executive, every fan. You don't get to define me. I do. And let's not overlook what she said, really said, about the Indiana fever. Those weren't throwaway comments. They weren't soft complaints. That was a player sounding the alarm in real time. The workload? Too heavy. The team cohesion? Not where it needs to be. The support system? Inconsistent. And when someone like Caitlin Clark, who's known for her composure and work ethic, starts speaking like that, you listen. Because it means the issues aren't minor. They're systemic. And maybe this is her way of setting boundaries. Of saying, I'll give everything I have to this game, but I'm not going to let it consume me. Not like this. And honestly, that's powerful. Because the message women in sports are constantly fed is, take what you can get and be grateful for it. But Caitlin, she's not doing that. She's saying she deserves better. And that her teammates deserve better. That women's sports deserve better. And if the systems around her can't keep up, they better catch up fast. This is bigger than basketball now. She's looking at what Mia Hamm and Maya Moore did, how they turned talent into transformation, and she's realizing she can do the same. That being a role model, means more than being polished. It means being present. It means being honest, even when it's messy, especially when it's messy. And let's be clear, this isn't about Caitlin Clark turning into some kind of activist overnight. She's not suddenly launching a nonprofit or organizing protests. But what she is doing is using her voice to show young girls, young athletes, young professionals that being real and being respected can coexist. That vulnerability isn't just okay. It's essential. She said it herself. She wants to reconnect. She wants people to see who she is when the cameras are off. That starts with opening up about the things that aren't perfect, about feeling overworked, about needing joy again, about making pasta in her kitchen just to feel normal. It's a recalibration, a reminder that even when your face is on billboards and your name trends every week, you're still allowed to feel, to struggle, to want more than what's being handed to you. And you know what? That's going to resonate more than any viral highlight ever could. Because at the end of the day, this is what makes fans stay. This is what turns casual viewers into lifelong supporters. Not just the talent, but the truth, the humanity, the willingness to say, hey, I'm figuring out too. That's what this interview gave us. Not just a better look at Caitlin Clark's career, but a better understanding of who she is when the game stops and the noise dies down. And let's not forget, this is happening right before a massive season, with a new shoe dropping, with more eyes on her than ever. She could have stuck to the script. She could have leaned on her media team and played it safe, but she didn't. She cracked the door open. And now that it's open, there's no going back. Because now, fans aren't just watching her. They're rooting for her, not just as a player, but as a person who's trying to make it through the chaos with her integrity intact. So whether you love her game or you've been on the fence about the hype, one thing's clear. Caitlin Clark just made it very hard to look away. And if this new, honest, open version of Caitlin is here to stay, we're all better for it. Let us know. Are you feeling this more vulnerable side of Caitlin? Do you think the Fever are dropping the ball behind the scenes? And is this the beginning of a new era for how female athletes handle their platforms? Make sure to hit like if you're all for athletes taking back their narratives. Comment below with your thoughts, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter in this absolute roller coaster. Because if this is where Caitlin's story is headed, we've only just hit the tip of the iceberg.